Bowling with the Fef.
I encourage you to get fat.
Your bowling stories.
For all things the game of bowling.
Every week.
Helping bowlers.
The hand collapses down.
Live.
And I'm going to try to bowl the best I can.
2,000 subscribers. 2,000 subscribers.
I want to challenge Ken Nelson.
Tom Corbett.
Jason Belmonte.
Let's do this. This is Bowling with the Fef.
Oh, here it is. Finally, at long last, it's come. Episode 200. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad that you are here with us, whether it be live or on replay, for the 200th episode of Bowling with the Fef. It's been quite a run. I am proud to say that this is a historic occurrence, and we have a huge name in the industry to kind of celebrate with us, tell his bowling story, and discuss a recent honor that he received out in Las Vegas this very month. So I'm looking forward to that. And also, to mark the occasion, we have a giveaway tonight. And if you stay with us, if you're live, remember, you have to be live to enter to win. We will tell you how to enter to get your name in the hat for a drawing later on that we're going to do for a 6-pack of Chip Magnet salsa, the very best salsa that money can buy, and you'll get 6 of them free if you are chosen as the lucky winner. Stay tuned, and we will tell you how you can enter that giveaway. Well, big congratulations to our Association Hall of Famers right here in my area. They will be inducted into the Eau Claire area USBC Hall of Fame this weekend. Terry Halita, Matt Stephenson, and Warren Mansky go in via the Superior Performance category, and Joni Bleisner in the Meritorious Service category. The event is Saturday, 4 p.m. at Bullwinkle's in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I always like to mention this just in the spirit of transparency. I am an active member of the association's board of directors, so I will be there. We'll shoot some video of the acceptance speeches and have that up on the channel after the fact. And I hope to see you there for what will certainly be an excellent night in our area's bowling history. Well, USBC will hold next season's intercollegiate singles and team championships at a Wisconsin center that has lots of big national events on its schedule. Ashwaubenon Bowling Alley in Green Bay will have ISCs and ITCs April 12th through the 18th, 2026. The singles competition is scheduled for April 13th through 15th. The night of the 15th is also the Night of Champions banquet, where the 2026 class of the Collegiate Bowling Hall of Fame will be inducted. Then the team championship finishes off the week on the 16th through 18th. Ashwaubenon is the 60-lane center that is also hosting qualifying events of the 2025 PWBA Anniversary Open in early July, followed by some of this year's Junior Gold events in the U12 and U15 boys divisions and the U12 girls division. Well, a change in ownership in a New Mexico bowling center means big things for the founder of the Agent Ong Open. 10 Pins and More in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, has hosted the New Mexico Open for 2 decades. In an announcement released today, PBA champion Mike Fagan let us know that he officially owns that center now. He takes over from an ownership duo that includes PBA champion Mike Miller. In a corresponding move, Carl Ong, a previous guest on the show who runs the popular Agent Ong Open in Arizona, will now also head up the New Mexico Open. This year's New Mexico Open is August 14th through the 17th. Ong said in a Facebook comment that he looks forward to continuing to honor what the previous owners started with that tournament. And since then, he has put out his own news release saying that the New Mexico Open will serve as one of the foundational pieces of the all-new Southwest Swing, a 3-tournament series across the region designed to bring even more visibility, competition, and prestige to the sport. He says more details will come in the days ahead. Very happy for Mr. Ong, who is certainly making waves in that part of the country and beyond in the competitive bowling scene. Just to let you know, we do have a merch store, etsy.com/shop/bowlingwiththefefco. You can find t-shirts and hoodies there for sale. And thanks in advance for supporting the channel in that way. You can also support it by patronizing our sponsors, Jerry's Score More Bowling Supply inside Wagner's Lanes. You can reach them at 715-559-1822 if you need it. And it has to do with bowling. He's got it. From bowling balls, accessories, to top-level coaching, Jerry's the guy you need to seek out to improve your game. Also, Visionary Video Hub, video with impact, plus live streaming, voiceover, and podcasting. Find out more at visionaryvideohub.com. And
raise your snack standards. Chip Magnet Salsa.
yeah, not everybody's going to win Chip Magnet Salsa tonight, but everybody can get it at a special rate. If you go on chipmagnetsalsa.com, enter this promo code at checkout, BWTF2025, you get 25% off a 6-pack order. A great deal on a great product, and one lucky viewer is going to win a 6-pack of Chip Magnet later on this evening. Chip Magnet, raise your snack standards, and as always, a huge thank you to the folks at Chip Magnet for supporting local bowling and supporting Bowling with the Fef. Well, tonight's guest has held some of the highest ranking positions that the national governing body of our sport has to offer. He was inducted into the USBC Collegiate Hall of Fame earlier this month for his excellence on the lanes at Georgia Institute of Technology, which is now Georgia Tech University, and is currently at the Bowling Centers Association of Wisconsin as a program manager. Roger Dalkin is joining us tonight from Greendale, Wisconsin, which is just outside of Milwaukee and very, very close to my hometown of Milwaukee, in an episode we are calling Seen, Understood, and Appreciated. Roger, I appreciate having you on the show tonight. Welcome.
Well, I appreciate you remembering that I still exist. A lot of people think I'm dead.
Well, Yvonne Bennett reminded us as she challenged you, went off the sheet about a month ago, and suggested that we have you on, and I'm glad she did. You just got back from Las Vegas, Night of Champions, and everyone out there, you can see video of the speeches for free on Bowl TV. Tell us what it's like to join this incredible group of competitors and coaches and contributors. I'm going to put up the list because, you know, I can't sit here and do it justice without seeing the names, but what is it like for you to join this group?
It actually has been a dream of mine. I've gotten many accolades relative to the administrative side of the sport, and very few people know about my competitive days because, as I was talking to you earlier, it was between 1968 and 1972, about the same time as Vietnam War, and that's all history book stuff. So, as I like to say, I'm the ghost of college bowling past. But in my college days back then, there wasn't nearly the collegiate activities that go on today. It was primarily the Association of College Unions International, which was a student union group that helped recreational people as far as table tennis, chess, table tennis, ping pong, bowling, billiards, etc. So when I became a student at Georgia Tech, there was a grand total of one competition to bowl in. You bowl in the campus program. If you make the top 5, you went to the regionals, and that year was in Tallahassee, Florida, at Florida State University. And you never met some of the other people you're bowling with, and you bowled as a team, doubles, singles, and all events. And if you're fortunate enough to win the all events, then you go to the nationals, which had 16 players at that time from 16 regions. And you bowled 3 games of doubles, 3 games of singles, and the 6 games was the all event title. That was the extent of the collegiate season. As it started to grow and it got going as the infancy of collegiate bowling. Down in the South, we formed an organization called the Southern Intercollegiate Bowling Conference. It had a grand total of 4 teams in it. It was Georgia Tech, Tennessee, South Carolina, and then Appalachian State in Boone, North Carolina. And we bowled against them, and there was 1 or 2 other tournaments. But other than that, that was the extent of our collegiate season in sophomore year. Junior year, 4 more teams joined the SIBC. Following year, 8 more teams, 16. And when I became collegiate manager, by the time I left collegiate bowling and collegiate manager, they were 52 teams in the Southern Intercollegiate Bowling Conference. There was a collegiate poll. There was a collegiate nationals that started in 75. So when I bowled, you had very little chance to do anything. And the fact that I was able to win as much as I did and tie Jack Knowton for the most collegiate titles at 5 was an important thing in my career. Then I went on to the administrative side of the game, and pretty much competitive bowling was forgotten. When they started the Collegiate Bowling Hall of Fame 2 years ago, I'm going, okay, I've been doing a lot on the collegiate side as far as administrator, but I really like to go in as an athlete. And as luck would have it, I got in this year. So I was pleased, and I was pleased to go in with Gordon Tigan. The reason I went in with Gordon Tigan, or the reason I'm pleased, he was running the ACUI men's tournament at that time. And over the 3 times I was at national, I became very good friends with him. He's actually the godfather of one of my daughters. Know him quite well. Went in with him, sat at his table at the Collegiate Hall of Fame. It was a great night, and I enjoyed it. And I've known Bill Straub, and I've known Gordon Tigan. I had not met Vicky prior to that, and it was an honor to meet her. And I knew Bill O'Neill because I was working at ABC in the Team Challenge when he was bowling Team Challenge after he got out at his collegiate career, but I never really met him directly. He was at the Tournament Champions, which is a good excuse for not being at the Collegiate Hall of Fame entry at that point. But and I know Steele Smith. I know Gordon Tigan. He was a coach when I was running the collegiate program. Carl Nicolai was a bowler at Michigan State and then became an administrator. So it was great knowing all the people that went in. I was honored to be part of the 10 that are in right now.
Yeah. Jay is already kind of on the bandwagon here, wants to know, how do I win the salsa? Well, the good news is it's kind of related, right? Because the word that we chose for people to get entered into this is yellow.
Don't tell them what it means, though.
Well, I'll let you
can figure it out.
So anyway, if you're watching live, all you have to do is type in hashtag yellow jacket, just like that, all lowercase, and you will get entered to win a 6-pack of Chip Magnet salsa flavors of your choice. So enter early and get in there, and we will declare a winner toward the end of this episode. And I'll throw up a little banner so in case you didn't catch that right away, you can get in on the action. So yeah, it was great to hear your speech. It seemed like you were a little emotional delivering it, and I've got to assume that the gravity of the moment kind of hit you, but is there something specific that maybe got you in that moment?
No, I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and those that have watched me at the ABC or USBC conventions, if I get in talking about bowling, I get emotional about it. And I was the one that inducted Yvonne Bennett at the nation's Capital Hall of Fame and choked up at that. And if I'm talking about something else or talking about the sport or things, but when I start talking about what I've done, I do get emotional. And if you saw the video that they did of me beforehand, I chastised them for showing the part where I was just breaking up, and I said I'll be a mess, and I was a mess that night. So, but I don't apologize for showing my emotions.
Yeah, it was cool to see both the video leading up to it and your speech. I did reach out to Sean Wachner, who is part of the committee that picks Collegiate Hall of Famers. He said, unfortunately, due to a rescheduled work trip, he couldn't be there in person, but he did make it home from the airport in time to watch the speeches. He said he thought yours was very heartfelt and meaningful. He also thought the connection between you and Gordon was special to induct them both in the same class, which was interesting because another thing I asked him was there a reason why you were in the second class and not the first? He said there was no reason. He said, we had a strong pool to choose from, and the committee thought that Jack should go in the first class. It was by no means a slight to Roger, as he was equally as impressive, but the same question could be asked about Bill Straub going in second behind Gordon Vatican. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, to hear that you should be in this, kind of quandary with Jack, kind of like Bill Straub and Gordon Vatican.
The interesting thing about that is when it was announced, the first class, and I kind of looked at it, and having been in the administrative side and been on the ABC Hall of Fame committee, I have to know that the Collegiate committee probably had 100, if not more, nominations, because they were trying to cover from the 1950s to 2000 as far as that. I had made a suggestion, maybe the first 2 years you take care of prior to, let's say, 1975, then work your way up. What they chose to do, and this is only speculation on my part, is they took a historical veteran, if you want to call it, and Jack Knauten would be the first. He had 5 titles. I followed him and had 5 titles. So you got the veteran, you got a couple contemporaries, Kelly Kulick, one of the outstanding collegiate bowlers. I saw her throw 3 strikes at the University of Wisconsin Fieldhouse to win the national title, just absolutely clutch. And every time I tell her, I see her, I said, those are the most clutch 3 strikes I'd ever seen. And you look at Vicky Valley at Indiana State. That was the era, same time I was just finishing up, that not a lot of things were going on other than ACUIs, but Indiana State had a team. And Bill Straub, absolutely fantastic at Nebraska. But I mean, if you really look at it, Bill came after Gordon. Gordon was one of the pioneers along with Kerm Helmer, and go down that list as far as that. And I actually got very friendly with the Wichita State team in 1975 in Indianapolis. I was coaching the Illinois State women's team, and Paul Wallachek at that time was coaching the girls team from Wichita State, and Cindy, Gordon's wife, was on that team. So I got to know her, and we had an incident at the Pizza Hut in Dayton that I will not relate to, but off the record, I will tell you what happened at it. And then eventually she married Gordon. I got to know Gordon because I was collegiate manager when he became the primary coach of Wichita State, and I think the world of him. Gordon Tigan was considered the godfather of collegiate bowling because he helped the ABC, WIBC form the collegiate division. He convinced the ACUI to take it onto the ABC and WIBC lanes. So Carl Nicolai's done a heck of a lot for collegiate bowling and deserved to go in. So I don't look at it as a slight or anything of that nature. Unless you wanted 15 or 20 people at the first induction, you had to make some choices. And I think they made very good choices. I was very pleased to go in with Gordon, and I'll look forward to attending the thing up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, in my home state.
Yeah, that was outstanding. When I found that out, I was tickled to know that maybe I can make it over there to.
Somebody asked me, they went, "You got elected. Could you delay it until it's in Green Bay?" So all the people from Wisconsin, I said, "No, I'm not delaying it at all, because at my age, you never know if there's going to be a next year."
Well, that's
better than being posthumously awarded. I wanted to be alive.
No, I'm really glad you got to experience that for yourself, and congratulations. I mean, that's a huge honor. Let's kind of go back to where it all began. I mean, you said that you grew up in Miami. How did you first get exposed to the sport and get into it?
It's a funny story, and it probably goes to any promotion bowling centers do. At the time, I was living in Wilton Manor, Florida, which is actually a little village in the middle of Fort Lauderdale, and a place called Farm Store, which was a drive up to buy milk and eggs and stuff, had a promotion. If you had 3 bottle caps, you get a free game of bowling. And we use Farm Store, so I get these bottle caps, and walking distance to Manor Lanes, a bowling center that's in Wilton Manors, and it's actually still there. I threw a game, and I said, "This is kind of cool," and I enjoyed it, and this kind of got the bug. Now, I was 12 years old, and that's kind of late to start. A lot of people say they want to start when they're 2 or 3. I think you wait until you're 12 or 13, because that's when you start developing your lifestyle. And I got hooked in bowling there, and I was bowling as much as I could. And then after about 1 or 2 years there, I think I was averaging 114. My parents moved to New York, Long Island, New York. And my new home center there was Bay Bowl. And I started bowling. And as a freshman, I was on the high school team. And I averaged 165 and couldn't get enough bowling. I was picking up cigarette butts in the parking lot to get free games. And I was painting gutters and doing anything I could. And then in the summer, my family went up to Connecticut for a holiday for a month, and I didn't see a bowling ball, and I was in withdrawal, absolutely withdrawal. Came back my junior year. Next year, I averaged 198. Now, I don't know what happened, other than maybe I got away from it, came back to it, and I got a ball that was a 3-dot classic, AMF 3-dot classic at 16, and I averaged 198. And then after my sophomore year, we moved to Florida, back to Miami, which was going to be the watershed year, and I came back there. Started bowling there, and they had a great program in Miami. There were like 30 centers in Miami at the time, huge junior program, a traveling league. It was part of a high school sport. Bowling centers had the normal Saturday morning, and a lot of the centers had junior classic leagues that bowled in the evening, and this is when they were double shifting. And by my senior year, I had kind of outlapped the field. I averaged 206 composite bowling in 6 leagues, if you can imagine that, in Miami. And it was high average in Dade County over men, women, and youth. I won like 9 out of 10 tournaments I bowled in at that time, and decided, okay, now what do I want to do? You're Vietnam War, you're 18, you're ripe for the draft, but if you go to college, you get a 2S deferment, and I want to go to college anyway. Good in math and science. And I said, okay. I applied to Cornell. I applied to Columbia. I applied to Rensselaer Polytech. Why all the New York schools? Because I'd come from New York and I thought it'd be a cool place to go to.
Yeah.
But I just happened to start dating another young lady who was bowling, and she lived in Miami, and all of a sudden New York was a long way away. And my physics teacher said, why don't you apply to Georgia Tech? So I wrote to them. 2 weeks later, I got accepted, and I said, this will work. It's only 9 hours when you get in the interstate and point south going 70 miles an hour to get home to see my girlfriend. So I went to Georgia Tech, never regretted it. Great school as far as that. The only thing is that 8,000 guys and 200 girls on campus. So, okay, what's going on? I got back my freshman year, halfway through, I finally proposed to my wife, who was a senior in high school at the time. And I said, I don't want to come back here without my own wife as far as that. And we got married that summer, 1969. She was 18 and I was 19. They said it wouldn't last or they're going to have a kid. And this summer we celebrate 56 years.
Oh.
So it worked out. And she came up to Atlanta and we had a great time at Tech and had a great time, got an engineering degree, started interviewing for a job and get an engineering degree, make a lot of money. And I said, well, I really like bowling. I've traveled the world bowling. I'd like to really work at a bowling operation on a college campus and give other kids an opportunity I had. So I told my parents, I'm not going to interview for engineering. I'd like to get into college bowling, ironically. Gordon Tigan called me up. He said, I got the perfect place. Called this gentleman at Illinois State University. They're building a bowling center on campus. And one thing led to another. And voila, I was the first manager of the University Union Bowling and Billiards Center in Normal, Illinois. And from there, we had 16 lanes. I developed the largest campus program in the country with 600 certified college kids bowling in leagues. My girls team went to the first 3 national championships. One of the girls I coached won the ACUIs, went to the World Cup, finished second. I was voted Amateur Bowler of the Year by the BJ at the time. And I was having a good time, but I was getting kind of bored because I'd been there 4 years. Everything was going pretty thing. And next thing I know, I got a call from Gordon Tigan. He said, call up Ken Hurley. They're looking for a manager for the Collegiate division that they're forming. And at that time, Collegiate Bowling had an ABC and a WIBC separate operations. They're merging it. Gordon said, go up and talk to him. I interviewed with Ken Hurley and with Flora Mitchell. And lo and behold, I was hired there. And so it began my time at bowling headquarters, collegiate manager. I was ironically the first, if you want to call it, joint employee of the organization. My business card had both logos on it. And off we went, and rest is history, as I like to say.
Yeah. Let's kind of, go back a little bit to your college days. I mean, as people may have already known or found out when you were inducted into the Hall of Fame. 5 national titles, 10 regional titles. That's a lot in 4 years' time. And you were just kind of getting warmed up. What was it that went so right for you in collegiate competition?
I think it was probably the style I developed. I was still using that same black 3-dot classic. Well, that was a promo ball. They took a picture at one of the nationals. That wasn't the ball I used, but I threw a full roller, probably 18 to 19 miles an hour. You can see there right off the gutter, straight at the pocket. Very little hook on it. Never miss the pocket. Never miss a spare. You get a double or a turkey. You got a 200 game. And lane conditions were not a factor for me. I was pretty much outside of them. Most centers were about 30 to 45 feet flat oil. So I wasn't trying to play the oil, just pointed right at the pocket and fired. Kind of always look at Liz Johnson and say either she copied me or I copied her, but it's the same style. And it worked. I mean, there were kids that were trying to hook it, playing second, and I was just pointing it out the thing. And the amazing thing about the ACUIs, first off, you had to qualify, and there were only very few that qualified. I was the only person ever qualified 3 times. And of 9 events I was at the national, I won 5 of them. But what a lot of people don't realize, I was also second in 2 of them and third in 1 of them. So 8 of the 9 things I bowled in, I placed in the top 3. And I always regret, I'd say Mike Clementi of Michigan State beat me in the singles event in Long Beach, where I would have had 6 titles. But it's probably better I didn't pass Jack, because Jack's an outstanding bowler. And when I went to the World Cup in Hong Kong, I was a 21-year-old kid that had never been out of the country. My wife went with me. Probably the only reason I won the World Cup in Hong Kong is my wife was there, because in Hong Kong, you were a star, and there were women screaming and yelling and wanting your autographs. And I just hung out with my wife, and all the other guys went out and got drunk and did all kinds of stupid things. So that's how I won in a roundabout way. But it was throw a rocket to the pocket. Conditions didn't matter. And the World Cup at that time was a tough one. You bowled 24 games of qualifying. They cut to the top 20 and dropped all wood. You bowled a 20-game round robin with bonus pins. At the end of that, they dropped all wood and then cut to the top 8. Then you bowled an 8-man round robin, cut to the top 4, dropped all pins. 4-man round robin, dropped to the top 2, drop all pins. You bowled a 3-game final. So, I mean, one mistake anywhere along that and you were out. And I actually led all the rounds. So I was probably about 500 pins ahead of everybody, and everybody's figuring you're going to lose in the finals because you're so far ahead. And as it turned out, it was a rather close thing. It was 542 to 524. People kind of laugh at that. And I go, no, you have no idea what was going on at that time. It was just chaos as far as that. And the amount of gambling that was taking place there. We were on I guess it's called a nightclub yacht after the event. And the guy from Finland came up to me absolutely plastered, thanking me because he took bets from everybody that I was going to lose, and he won thousands of dollars. This is 1971. So he was ecstatic that I won. Everybody else, I think they were happy I won because I had led the tournament so much. And the following year, when I went to Hamburg to defend the title, I had not been bowling because I had left college. I was getting ready to open the place at Illinois State University. I had to get a special, I don't want to say dispensation, but agreement by the civil service, because I was a civil servant, that I could take off a week because I'd only been there 5 months. And they said, okay, you only get 1 week, you got to go. And I'm saying, I'm going to bowl in the World Cup. And I went there, and Mort Luby said, you going to win it this year? I said, don't have a chance. He goes, why? I said, I'm not in practice. I'm not doing it. And the event before the thing started, they have a special event where the host country puts 8 bowlers up and the world puts 8 bowlers up. And I was obvious in the world team, and they matched me against Klaus Mueller, who had won the year before I did and was the defending champion that I knocked off. So I was bowling him in the match. 6-game match, I shot 1,400. It was the highest 6-game total ever in Germany. My guy's going to run away with it. And I got there, and I was bowling. I was in top 3, top 4, top 3, cut. And we got to the top 4. And there was a guy from Iran, a guy from Philippines, Ray Mitchell from Canada, and myself. I bowled 4 matches. I shot between 195 and 205 and didn't win a match. And I ended up in 4th place, which was fine with me as far as that, because I didn't have my A game on as far as that. Ray Mitchell won. We've been friends ever since. And you showed a picture earlier of Ray and I.
I was going to say, was that who this was?
Yeah, that's Ray Mitchell, me handing him the World Cup. And ironically, when I won the World Cup, there was no World Cup. I have a silver plaque hanging on my wall that the host organization gave me. It's engraved, says 1971 World Cup champion. But then the following year, there's a picture of me putting the World Cup back on the table. I'm saying, how come I never got one?
Right.
But I always say it's not what you win; it's what the experience. Somebody asked me, said, what's your cherished thing? I said, it's the memories. It's the stuff's hanging on the wall is nice, but that's not it. It's what's up here and what I've experienced, and I've been blessed my whole life in the game of bowling.
Yeah. So with that kind of resume out of college and that big World Cup win and a 4th place finish, was there any desire to go out on tour?
Yeah, I had that question is coming because it did come. In addition to my final year at Tech, I also made the United States team. I was the first collegiate bowler to qualify for the U.S. team through a team trial process. And the first team trial, I was the alternate to the World Championships in Milwaukee. In the second team trial, which was out of my senior thing, I ended up making the top 9, and we went to Caracas in Venezuela for the FIQ. So I had that. And a lot of people said, why aren't you going pro? Because at that time, if you were in the 70s, it was appointment TV. There were stops year round as far as that. I bowled a couple pro-ams as an am for the fun of it as far as that. And I looked at that and I said, I'm married. I have a great time bowling. I love the sport. If I had to do it for a living and had to travel, would I still love it? And I decided no. And my father was disappointed. He wanted to see me in a tour. Some of the sponsors said, well, give it a try. I said, I don't want to. I said, I want to be on the side where there's a lot of kids out there probably like me that would want the same chances. I'm going to give it to it. And as I said, Lauren Lacoste, who bowled from Illinois State, won the ACUI Nationals. She was teamed with Lucy Sandlin. At the time, Lucy Giovenko, the two collegians for the 2 years I was at Illinois State. She was from Hillsborough. They went on the FIQ and won gold medals in doubles and had experience a lifetime. And that's what I did it. And when I went to collegiate thing, I wanted to give collegians the chances they have. And it's been a love affair ever since of helping other people do it. I had my day in the sun, albeit eons ago, but I had my day in the sun, the lanes, and I want to give other people their day in the sun.
Yeah. But I understand what you say about it being work, because I have a history in local television. I can remember talking with someone in news when I was doing sports saying, don't you want to at least try to do sports? And he told me, you know what? Sports for me is entertainment, and I don't want it to mingle with work and the working lifestyle. I want it to be entertainment. So that makes total sense. Knowing what you know now, any regrets?
Never regret. It went just the way I wanted to. I've had opportunities to help a lot of people and do a lot of things for college bowling and bowling in general. And that's what I love about the game. I bowl for enjoyment. I always bowled for enjoyment as far as that. And never the twain shall meet. And I never looked back. I never regretted it. People said, well, you could have been good. I said, well, I can remember in 1993, kind of a funny story. We're at Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Norm Duke won the Masters. And I handed him a check that I signed. So he worked for the $50,000. I signed the check. I'd rather be the one signing the check than busting my tail. So maybe I took the easy way out. Who knows?
Hey, I think it worked out for both of you.
Yes, he's done pretty well, and I have too. So
yeah, for sure. So, you talked about kind of that rise to ABC, WIBC, and that was housed in Wisconsin at
Greendale,
the time. Yeah. Was it kind of a strange thing? I know you had been in Illinois, but you're moving states again. You're moving to the headquarters. What was that like for you?
I couldn't wait. I had been at Illinois State for about 4 years. As I said, it was like cookie cutter. Every year was the same. I put everything in place. We had a huge program as far as that. I was itching to try something new. And ironically, a job opened at University of Texas, where they were redoing their entire union, looking for somebody for the bowling thing. Went down, interviewed, had a great interview. they contacted me and they said, we've decided to go with such and such. And I said, may I ask why? I said, you were overqualified for the job. Now, nowadays, if you ever say that to it, I'd sue them because if I'm overqualified, you should hire me. But back then you accepted the answer.
Sure.
And they said, you're overqualified and you intimidated the students. Okay, maybe that's just my style. The upside is 2 months later when Gordon called me and said, hey, they get this job up in Greendale. So I had the Texas thing come through. I might have been a Longhorn for God knows how long, but it worked out. And I went up to Greendale and I couldn't wait really to get there. Ironically, the team trials in 1971 were up in Wisconsin at Wauwatosa, and we got to be for the dedication of the building. And much like in Miami, we were at the dedication. I'm walking through this headquarters that has blue Naugahyde furniture and orange carpet, which was the style then. I said, this would be a cool place to work. I remember it from Miami. I'd like to work at this place. And I had the opportunity and loved it. The irony of the whole thing is after about 5 years there, I had my first two children down in Normal, Illinois, and then had my third child in Milwaukee with my wife. And I always say nonprofit pays you what a nonprofit pays you. And okay, we weren't living high in the hog and we weren't starving, but my father, who's in the insurance business, said, why don't you come down to North Carolina? We've got this agency. You could make a lot more money down here and do that. And at the time, YBA and AJBC were merging. And I told Ken Hurley at the Memphis convention and ABC convention that I was going to resign from the Collegiate division and go to work with my father down in North Carolina. He was rather shocked because he thought maybe I was the person to run the new organization. But I went down to North Carolina, spent 4 years there, ended up with 3 agencies, a finance company, making money hand over fist, and I hated it. Oh. And I was on the YBA board because they put me in the ABC board of directors at large to help with the youth. So I was on the YBA board. That's where I met Yvonne, actually. And I was coming back from one of the meetings, and Steve, I think it was Steve Hoy, with, one of the chain operations. I said, so how'd you like it? I said, I was frustrated as hell. He goes, why? I said, I want to be up there doing something. He said, well, then do it. So I got back down to North Carolina. I told my father, I said, I'm going to be leaving in about 6 months. I'm going to see if I can get a job back up at the headquarters. One, he wasn't happy that I went into the run a college union after getting an engineering degree, but that's one thing. Then I said, I'm leaving your business. I'm going up to, and I called up and I talked to Roger Tessman and I said, I'd like to come back and work at the new YABA. And then he says, I have a better idea. Why don't you come up here? We want to talk to you. I'm going, okay, what's this going to be? So I flew up to Greendale, met Roger Tessman in his office. He's the executive director at that time, and met a gentleman by the name of Dr. Bob Helene, who I never realized, but would later become a major person in my life. He said, you don't want to be in the youth division. He said, you got an engineering degree. We need somebody with engineering expertise to take over the equipment specification and technical side, because we have no technical people out there. They're just, not that they're just bowlers, but they, moment of inertia differential and coefficient rate, they have no idea what they're talking about. Yeah. I said, well, I'd really like to do the other. Well, this would be a better one. And it was a joint employee, ironically, ABC, WIBC, and the equipment spec. So I accepted the position. I became the group executive technical, and I oversaw, and this is the age of rejecting scores and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I was head of high score award division, which is the one that approved or denied scores, certification, which did the inspections of the lanes, equipment specifications. And I used to go out to proprietor meetings because I was the main person. I'd stand up there. I said, if you have any complaints about ABC, WIBC, there it is. It's with me. I oversee your score rejections. I take away your certification, and I set rules in that you can't comply with. So if you don't like it, I'm the one you're going to be talking about it. So in essence, I became the group executive technical and was very high profile with the short oil tests and reader and take-up device and all the things that are ancient history now, but were cutting edge back then. And I did that for 5-6 years. And at that time, Tessman and Hurley decided to retire. And at the time as Tessman and Bert Kellerman was the number 2 guy. They retired together. So then the thing came open. So I applied for the executive director position, obviously. Why not? Daryl Dobbs has selected that, which was great. I applied for the number 2 spot. I got the number 2 spot, and Daryl and I think did a great job together. And he unfortunately passed away early in his life as far as that. And then they didn't immediately put me as executive director. They went through another search process, which is fine. And some people said, why don't they just elevate you? And I said, because I have to earn it. And I was selected the executive director at that time, and Jack Meridian is the number 2. And I did that. Everything seems to be in 5 years. I did that for about 5-6 years. And that's when we started the merger process and lead the charge to get rid of your own job and USBC. And then USBC started, and they did a national search, 400 applications, and came down to 2 or 3 people. And I was in the interview, and they said, why should we hire you? You've got ABC written all over you, and we're trying to merge the organizations. And I said, you need somebody internally that the delegates trust. I said, the women trusted me, and I spoke at their conventions because of the technical side. The ABC side trusted me. I said, the first person's going to have to say, we're going this direction, and they may not like it, but they understand where it's going. They said, if you hire an outsider, it's going to be a fight the entire time. And fortunately enough, they agreed with me. I was hired, and I, in essence, got rid of virtually everything I had on that had ABC on it, except the leather jacket with the 300 on it and my 300 ring. And everything became USBC, and been USBC ever since. And as long as I was doing that, everybody else went along. And if you really look at it now, people don't even know what ABC WIBC is, couldn't recognize the logo. And it's now USBC, a single governing body for the sport of bowling, which made sense. And it's a good thing it happened, because in talking to Roseanne Kuhn and other people, had it not happened, it would have been a war, because ABC was feeling we needed one organization. We had everything in place as a contingency plan to go after women bowlers. They were already eligible to bowl in ABC because of the challenge we had about the male only. We had gotten all the AJBC stuff copywritten, and we were ready to go out and, okay, you want one organization, we're going to fight and do it. Well, the merger happened, which was the better way to go. It's better to do it peacefully than aggressively. And I think it's worked out well. And people say to this day, why'd USBC do this? I said, it's been 18 years. I have no idea. Go talk to Chad. I said, I'm not sitting in the meetings. I'm not having any input. I said, it's the rearview mirror situation. I accomplished and helped out with the merger. I led it for 3 years, got through the rough spots, and now the next generation takes over. And it's kind of like previous presidents of the United States. George Bush doesn't get involved in what goes on, and you just stay out of it. It's a new group leading, and you sit and watch. Do I agree with everything? Maybe not, but it doesn't matter. I'm just one guy.
Yeah. I've got a couple comments that I want to bring up, but I don't want to forget this question. You mentioned being kind of head of the technical, specifications, lanes, honor scores, and the period that you're talking about reminds me that 82 is around there, and that's when Glenn Allison shot 900.
Excellent. I was hoping the question would be asked.
Were you involved in that at all?
I was not really involved. I was just coming into the technical side. Bert Kellerman did the inspection, but here's the deal with that. There's 2 words that we throw around in bowling and kind of loosely: integrity and credibility. And I always try and define them separately. Integrity is following the rules as written, doing what you're supposed to do. Credibility is the opinion of Joe Norris thinks credibility was 1940s. Dick Weber thinks it's 1960s. Jason Belmonte thinks it's 2020s. Credibility is a subjective thing. I almost hate to bring it like pornography. I don't know I can't define it, but I can tell you when I see it. Glenn Allison's decision on his 900 was an integrity issue. That was the rules of the game at that time. And at that time, the lane dressing compliance was not within the bounds of what was acceptable under the rule. And it was enforced that way. It wasn't Glenn's fault. ABC never said Glenn didn't shoot the 900. It just said what you were doing out there was not within the rules, and we have to deny the score. Since that time, if you remember, we made Glenn Allison an ABC ambassador to go out and speak to the people about ABC and just be an ambassador. And we brought him in with Parker Bonin and Mike Albee and go down a whole list of all the stars we had on the ABC ambassador thing. and we were doing speaking training, how to act in front of a group, handle questions, etc. And at the end, each one would get up and do a 5-minute speech of what they'll talk about. Glenn gets up and he starts on about the history of ABC, and we're all kind of sitting there. All right. He gets all through, and he's ready for questions. So I'm gonna broach the issue. I said, Mr. Allison, I said, you shot a 900 series. ABC rejected the score. What are you doing speaking on behalf of ABC? He paused. He said, you need an organization, a governing body of sport. They make decisions. You may not always agree with them, but we need the governing body of sport, and I honor their ability to make that decision. I said, perfect. That's all you have to say. Now, why don't you tell us about when you shot the 900? He said, I'm allowed to talk about it. I said, that's why you're on this here. That's what people are going to come want to see. And he sat there for like 15 minutes regaling all these outstanding pro bowlers, just dead silent, listening to him talk about the 900. And I was told, well, and since that time, I said, you know, you got more mileage, more remembrance, more anything else with the rejection. And that was because we were maintaining the integrity. And somebody said, well, why don't, if he bowled it now, he'd get it. I said, of course he is. The rules have changed. Why don't you give it to him? Because it would be against the integrity of the game, integrity of ABC, to not enforce the rules for Glenn, but to throw out all the other 300s that happened at that time. Sure. And Glenn and I are good friends. Jim Dressel has been in my case. Bob Johnson has been in my. I said, I would never recognize it because of the integrity. Now, you may say the credibility of the game is bad now because we automatically give the scores. But what we did was we took the bowler out of the pawn. The bowler was the pawn back in the 70s and 80s. We used the bowler against the proprietor. We're going to throw out your score. You go complain to the proprietor. That was wrong. 1991, we changed the entire equation. We said we will do surprise inspections as far as that, but we will not penalize the bowler. And that was a shift. Different integrity, different rules of the game. And I always tell people, I said, and the one thing you never think about, when Glenn was bowling, he was bowling against 3-pound 2, 3-pound 3-ounce pins. If he bowled today, he'd be bowling against 3/6 to 3/8. Would he have shot the 900? I don't know. But the rules had changed. So I always say integrity is following the rules. Credibility is the fun thing to debate.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say credibility was best from 1969 to 1972 when I dominated college bowling. That was the credible game at that time. I always say, who's ever bowling best now, this is when it meant the most.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's fun to debate it. But don't question my integrity. You may question the credibility, but don't question the integrity. We will follow the rules.
For sure. All right. So Jay says, I was a YBA member as a youth bowler in Modesto, California at Yosemite Lanes. Still have my shirts, patches, and pins. I wish I could say the same. I was in a group that, you know, you get the 150 and 175 patch and you chuck it in a friend's bowling bag. But no, that's cool because, you know, see, now he's got the keepsakes and I got to, you know, rack my brain to figure out what.
I'll tell you a funny story about the YBA AJBC merger.
Yeah.
YBA was the proprietor group, and AJBC was the, for lack of a better term, regulatory group. I was a collegiate manager at the time when they started having merger talks, and Chuck Hall was the executive director of AJBC. Don Hillman out of California was the primary spokesperson for BPA and the YBA, and I was the mediator in the room, which was always a fun thing. Kind of set me up for when we did the ABC WIC. We were in the thing one time when you mentioned the emblems. Don was talking about all the emblems that they gave out. And Chuck Hall looked across from me and said, you give an emblem to a bowler that sneezed. And Don took great offense to that. And I said, calm down. Okay, that was a little over the top. But that's how the things would be discussed. Eventually, we agreed that there were one single youth organization made the sense. And cooler heads prevailed. ABC voted for it. WIBC voted for it. BPA voted for it. And YBA was formed. Chuck was the original executive director of it, and I think youth bowling benefited from the merger. And one of the things when we formed USBC, YABA was concerned that they get lost in the shuffle. I think the group that's probably benefited the most from the merger is the youth. The youth program with USBC and BPA working together, and now you got Collegiate going full blast, all the things taking care of the youth, because that's the future of the game, no question about it. That's why I like working with the high school bowlers, the middle school bowlers, the Pepsi tournament, BCAW. But yeah, there's a lot of funny stories. Hall of Fame. I'm going to tell you one funny Hall of Fame story. You may have heard it before. We were sitting at the ABC Hall of Fame board meeting where they select things, and Steve James and Bruce Plecon were the ABC people there. Carmen Salvino was sitting as one of the voting members. And Bruce Plecon, who had traveled the world to get all kinds of stuff for the Hall of Fame and museum and Europe and whatever, started chastising Carmen Salvino about the fact, he said, Carmen, you need to donate a lot of your stuff to the Hall of Fame and museum so we can put it in there and recognize it. Carmen said, I'd never donate it to you. And Plecon says, why? He says, I have more traffic and better lighting in my dining room and living room than you have in your museum. And the place just went nuts. The fact that I have more traffic and better lighting was just got. So there's a lot of funny behind the scenes stories as far as that. But hey, that's what bowling's about, all the stories.
For sure. Yeah. Jeff says, thanks for paving the way for college bowling. My son Landon Warner has been on UW Whitewater team the last 4 years with 2 national championships.
Yeah. A club team winning the national titles. That's great.
Yeah.
As far as that.
Yeah. That's what a terrific achievement. And
even though I'm from Wisconsin, I have to be neutral when I'm talking about the things. It's nice to see Wisconsin bowlers do well as far as that, but I have to root for everybody.
Yeah. And then the great Steve Klemkin says, great Collegiate Hall of Fame speech, Roger. Enjoyed listening to it, and congratulations.
Thank you, Steve. I remember watching you at the ABC one time. You may have never heard this, but Daryl Dobbs and I are sitting there watching you, and Daryl looked down, watched you both, said, that kid is a great bowler. He will go someplace. So Daryl had a pretty good eye, and he was right.
Yeah. Well, maybe another year or two, maybe he joins you in that Hall of Fame. I'd be on board with that.
Yeah, it's amazing when you talk about the Collegiate Hall of Fame. There's probably so many worthy people. I mean, I was talking to Gary Brown. I said, if you really look at and dig back into them, collegiate bowling started in the early 1900s in Manhattan, and there was a Professor Watterson from Pace University in the 20s and 30s, I think it was, that had a tournament in New York City where they had people from Yale and a few other. So I said it goes back and it just kind of filters along. If you do some research in the Bowler's Journal, really didn't get started to be documented until I would say, we put a collegiate division together and started actually keeping track of everything. What it went on before was more folklore. NJCA was recognizing it, and they had their tournaments. NAIA was the college things, had their tournaments, and AWIA or AIWA was the women's organization. It was also a collegiate sport, but NCAA wasn't looking at it, and all the big collegiate teams or big colleges weren't looking at bowling at anything. I mean, the year I won the World Cup is the first and only time in the history of Georgia Tech that the yearbook had bowling in the athletics section. And the reason being is one of the girlfriends of one of the bowlers was on the yearbook staff, and they said, how can you not put the team in here that has the defending world champion, the national champion, not be in the athletics? So I have one yearbook sitting back up there that actually has bowling in it in the athletics side of Georgia Tech. Other than that, they don't know we exist.
Well, Steve says, wow, what an honor. Thanks for sharing that. And because Steve is here, I gotta plug his thing. He's got a scholarship deal at Wichita State, the Coach K Scholarship, which unfortunately I'm covering up with my crazy graphics here. But if you go to bit.ly/Coach K Scholarship, you can find out details. That bowling pin that's one of 3 behind me here is something that is like one of the things that he fundraises with. Yeah. Get money into the Wichita State students' hands that could really use it. And
if I might, I'd like to make one other statement about, and I did it at the Collegiate Hall of Fame. As I told all the athletes out in the audience, I said, this is going to come as a shock to you, but the vast, vast majority of you will not make it on the tour. Mm-hmm. I said, it's kind of like the NCAA commercial, 95 or 98% of college athletes go with professional and something else. And I said, And if you love bowling like I did, you can go in the administrative side. You can go in as a coach. You can go in as a working in a college campus. You can go work for the manufacturers, Storm, AMF, Brunswick, go down the whole list. I said you can even go into owning a bowling center. And I mentioned a proprietor here in Wisconsin, Eric Giadella, who was a bowler at University of Nebraska, ended up coming back to Wisconsin, now owns 3 centers, 2 of which will have junior gold at. So, or even get inside with the USBC, which Chad was talking about. There's a lot of opportunities in the bowling industry, and we need leadership. Hey, I'm 75 now, and they still need my help. We need a lot more younger people than me or Yvonne, or go down the whole list. So, yeah, you can give the tour a try if you want to, but look at the manufacturers, look at proprietor, look at getting in the game on the other side, and you'll probably get paid back tenfold.
Sure. And Steve certainly did that with Storm. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Jay says the Pepsi tournament is fantastic. My son qualified for the state finals coming up this weekend in Sacramento. He won his district, so he's excited about his chances on Saturday. That's fantastic. That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, our Pepsi tournament will be May 10th at Ashwaubenon, ironically. The Ashwaubenon, we had 1,800 kids make it to the regional level, 1,811. And we'll have 56 they're bowling at the state this year, 4 in the 6 different divisions. So we're one of the only 2 states where the proprietor group runs a Pepsi. And people say, why in Wisconsin? I said, well, because Wisconsin USBC has the largest open tournament, the largest women's tournament, one of the largest. They have such huge tournaments. We've just helped them out, and we run the Pepsi for them and operate with USBC. And it always helps when I can call back to USBC and talk to somebody that used to work for me and say, hey, I need this help. And they usually help me out. So,
yeah,
but
sure.
We enjoy doing the Pepsi, and we could give it back to the Wisconsin USBC, but they'd probably need our help running it anyway. So we run it on their behalf.
Yeah.
It's a great tournament. I mean, U12, you get 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, and some of them are shooting some big numbers. It's unbelievable. I'm glad I bowled youth bowling in the 60s.
For sure. My son was one of the 1,811. He is not one of the 156.
Yeah,
but always.
Glad he made the 1,811 as far as that. That's good.
Yeah. He had fun with it for sure. So I want to get back to some of this stuff from when you got here and all that. Yvonne told me when she came to Wisconsin rather to work for YABA, you were on the board of directors at that time. She said that you were also the chair of the YABA International Workshop the year that she was the staff manager for the event in Peoria, Illinois. She said she learned so much from you about the role of staff versus volunteer through that experience. And throughout her 25-year career in association management, you remained a trusted mentor and friend. I mean, that's a big compliment, of course. But tell me about that. What did you say about the role of staff versus volunteer?
In her situation, I was the volunteer. I was on the board of directors, and you get the nice name plaque, and you walk around. You're important as far as that. And what I instilled in her, and I instilled a lot of people at bowling headquarters, is I'm not running this. You're the professional. You're the ones we hired to do it. Now, there we are. You're the ones who are going to do it. I said, if you got a problem, I said, I'll take the heat. But I said, you're the professional. I'm the volunteer. And she always remembered the fact that I let her run the event. I was not trying to horn in, etc. And it's one of the things I always had trouble with board members at the national level, where you've got a staff. And at that time, we had probably about 150 people working at bowling headquarters that you pay good money to run this event. And Elaine Hagan, I love her to death. She's a fantastic lady. She's one of my biggest supporters. But here's how it goes. We're in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm the executive director of ABC convention. Vaughn comes up and he says, Roger, where's the writer's dinner? I said, I don't know. I said, go ask Michelle. Michelle St. Marie was running it that time. He said, well, when is it? I said, I don't know. Well, but I don't know, Elaine. Go talk to Michelle. She says, don't you know anything? I go, yes, I know to hire good people that know how to run it. So go talk to them. I said, I don't put my hands in everything. You don't micromanage. You hire smart people to do smart things, and you let them go. And my responsibility at that point was, If something goes wrong, I take the blame. And I always used to tell the staff, I said, anything goes wrong, do not sweat it. Our biggest problem is if the sun does not come up tomorrow, we got bigger problems than anything else. Other than that, we can get through anything. And I said, in reality, the majority of people out there will not see the glitch. They will not know about it. You don't have to say anything about it. Just take care of it, solve it, and move on. And staff was usually pretty calm at the convention because if something went wrong, it went wrong. Loading the truck, yeah, I'd load the truck with them. It's a team effort. And nobody's above anybody else. Everybody's chipping in to make a success. And when you get done, people say, hey, it's great. They said, my God, if they knew what happened, they'd be dying. But things happen. If everything goes perfect, something's going to go wrong. Nothing will ever be perfect. You just work your way through it. So, yeah, we've been good friends. The time, I think it's more that she got to see me as a volunteer, understanding the role of the volunteer is not to run it. The role of volunteer is to set direction. Where do you want USBC to go? Look at the big picture. You hire the staff to execute it. And one of the things I used to say to the USBC board, I said, it's the Carver model. You set the expectations and the limitations, and you let me go. And if I stay in the limitations and meet your expectations, that's what you want. If I go outside the limitations, that's when you snap me back. But I said, you set the direction, but you're paying me to do the work. And because people say, you used to be president of ABC. I said, no, that was volunteer. I was the executive director. I got paid. A lot of these euphemisms I use as far as that.
She went on to say that you were invaluable to her when she first joined BCAW and faced challenges in governance and managing the investments of the association. She said, who better to manage and administer the bowling tournaments of the BCAW than the former CEO of USBC, and before that, the ABC Executive Director.
Sometimes it's better to be incognito, because after I retired from USBC, my daughter got me involved with coaching the high school bowling team in Greendale. And we were at a meeting. Most people there at that time had no idea who I was in the high school thing. And 2 or 3 people knew. And the district coordinator said, I need a volunteer to run the junior varsity program. It's got to be a varsity coach. And I'm in the back kind of cowering away, as you like to do. And she said, Roger, would you do that? I go, okay, I'll run the junior varsity term, no problem. And the guy across the table from me, honest to God, doesn't know me, says, do you know how to run bowling tournaments? And I'm sitting there and
maybe a little.
I said, let me see. 5 national collegiate titles, the largest tournament in the world at the ABC Championships, the FIQ Worlds in 1995, the Olympics in 1988. I think I can handle a JV tournament. And he looked back at me, and he's probably looking at me like, you're a real a-hole. And I was at the time, but it's better to be incognito because people don't expect a whole lot from you. I ran the JV tournament, then I got sucked into being district coordinator, and next thing I know, I was running the state tournament, helping Yvonne, and the rest is history, as they say. So
yeah,
you try and get away, and you get sucked back in.
Sure.
I don't mind getting sucked back in.
I'm thinking back to what you had said about, people ask me my opinion on what goes on in USBC now. And that reminds me a lot of this part of my interview with Yvonne. Listen.
When you're in the peanut gallery and you're saying things, or people are in your ears because they know that you either have Roger's ear or that you have a relationship with Alyssa, that, they want to vent to me, and I have to sort of shut that down because I can't expend the energy or the emotion on it. So that's my public plea to anybody listening to this, that if you're not happy or you got great ideas, please share them directly with Roger and Alyssa at the office.
I like how she started with if you're not happy and not if you have great ideas.
I've told her, because she loves the sport. She did miracles for BCAW. I've just been the steward of what she put together, and she worries over everything. And I said, Yvonne, you're retired. Enjoy yourself. I know people will contact you. They contacted me for like 4 or 5 years after. He said, I'm not invited. I don't know. Yeah, ask the people in charge. I'm retired. Yeah. Are we going to run BCAW way Yvonne? No, it's going to be different. The list is going to be different. I was different. Is the organization going to survive? Yeah. Will it survive exactly the way Yvonne would like it? Or is USBC surviving the way I like it? Doesn't matter. I keep saying, I said, Stop going on Facebook. Stop looking at all this stuff. Do your thing with the national parks. Do your thing with the dog rescues as far as that, and just have a good time with your husband. I said, you gave your whole life to bowling for the most part in your career. It's now time to enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying myself doing what I'm doing because, well, Yvonne and I are wired the same. As she once said to me, I've never seen somebody who can be so calm in a crisis. I said, well, being hair on fire is not going to help, so I'm calm usually. And she's more the hair on fire because of her passion, and it shows. My passion comes out when I cry when I'm talking about things. So that's where we're kind of a little different.
Sure. So a couple years ago, you folks at BCAW who run the high school state tournament decide to get into this new scoring system, kind of give it a test run. And then this past high school state tournament, you implemented it. It's called BER. And I reached out to Robert Vader, who is behind BER. And he said that you were very involved with the implementation of it into the high school bowling club. He said that he visited you at the BCAW office in Pewaukee a couple times where you worked together through the process of completing the algorithm and collecting data to do the test run that was in the 23-24 season. He said that you were instrumental in pushing BER for approval from the HSBC committee, which was a success, starting with the 24-25 season, which was this season. So tell me what BER is and why it's in place for high school state now.
Excellent. And I'll be happy to do it. And I'm going to use an analogy because if I start talking about the algorithm, people go, what are you talking about? What we used to use is fill ratio. That means a frame has two outcomes, a mark or not a mark. Now, that's another sport did the same thing for a century called baseball. Batting average is a hit or an out.
Yeah.
They didn't count balls. It didn't matter what the hit was. And it was either a hit or not. And you had a batting average, 300. Well, if you have Ohtani batting 300 and you got Mookie Betts batting 300, who would you rather have batting? Ohtani. Why? On base percentage became a new metric. Slugging percentage gave. What is on base? It counts your walks because a walk's the same as a single, but in batting average, walks didn't matter. Slugging percentage, a double's better than a single, triple's better than a double. So baseball modified
you might only have to have four other pitchers.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's a whole different ball. I'm talking about how do you rate a hitter?
Yeah.
It's always been batting average. How do you rate a bowler? Fill ratio, because they don't bowl the 10 frames of the game. They bowl two frames of the thing.
Yeah.
What Robert came up with, and if you think about it, the FIQ or the IBF, whatever initials you want to go with, tried to do something like that when they had a scoring system where a strike was 30, a spare was 20, and an open was whatever the thing was. And it flopped tremendously because a strike isn't worth 30. A strike is worth 10 plus 2 balls.
Yep.
Spare is 10 plus 1 ball. An open is an open. And Robert started working out to try and figure out how do I, because he's involved in the, trying to remember statistics, analysis, things of that nature. And he came to me and he had this idea and he showed it to me. And being a math person coming out of an engineering background before we had computers, we had to do it all in our mind as far as that. Okay, I said, that's good, but you're missing a few things. The ultimate thing for BER is to replicate or better estimate what you would bowl as an average in bowling. Because in bowling, when you bowl regularly, strikes were 10 plus 2 balls. Well, in fill ratio, a strike and a spare are the same thing. So I said, if you think fill ratio is better, why do we have our high school matches is that just fill ratio? So Oak Creek gets 9 strikes in a row in an open. That's a 90% fill ratio. You get 10 spares, you win the game. Well, that's ridiculous. That's exactly what it is. That's a huge out in the left field advantage. But the real nuances is when you get in the top echelon of bowlers. What's the difference between a 214 and a 210? It's 4 pins. 4 pins is a lot of pins as far as that. So what BER does is say, a strike for you is worth something different than a strike for me. Why? because if you get 5 strikes a game or 5 strikes out of 10, and let's say 5 spares out of 10, that means when you throw a strike, the odds of you throwing a double is 50%. The odds of you throwing a turkey is 25% because it keeps going down. The other 50% time when you don't throw the second strike, you spare. So the strike is worth 20 pins plus 29 or 30 pins, and it's factored in. So a strike for you is different than a strike for me, depending on how many strikes, what our strike percentage, spare percentage, and open percentage is. In reality, the BER has one given. If you don't throw a strike, it's a 9 count. If you don't spare, it's a 9 fill, which actually benefits the lower average bowlers that will get 8s and 7 misses, or on a spare, they're going to get 7 count. So it benefits the lower average bowler a little better than it does the higher average bowler who probably will get 9 or something of that nature. So we tweaked it a little bit. The algorithm in essence says a strike is, in other words, what's your percentage here? 10 plus 10 plus 9, 10 plus 10 plus 10, 10 plus 9, or 10 plus spare. So it's got all these different algorithms. You put it together, and if you look at it, it's a real long algorithm. What people are upset about is they can't automatically in their head figure it out. And they're saying at the end of the season, I'm coaching people different because I'm now coaching them to get strikes. I'm going, isn't that what you coach them for anyway?
Yeah.
The spare is the outcome if you aren't successful, but aren't you getting a strike? I said, you say, oh, hey, go up there and get spares. Just get nothing but spares. Well, spares are important, yes, but strikes are more important.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to do is estimate a person's ability to score in a regular play, because when they bowl at the state, they bowl a regular game. And if we didn't have a singles event at the state tournament, there wouldn't be fill ratio and there wouldn't be BERs. That's all it is to select who goes to the state. Right. And we're just trying to, as they like to say, get the best bowlers at the state.
Yeah.
And we compared it. And as I said, about 70% of the kids that went under fill ratio the year we tested it would have also gone under BER. But the break is right in the borderline. And one guy said to me, he said, well, my son ended up, because I made the comment that anybody that had not qualified under BER in our test year didn't make it to the second round of the singles at the state. And this one guy calls me up or emails me and said, no, my son had a lower strike percentage than such and such, and he ended up finishing third at the state. And I went back and looked. Okay, he had a better spare percentage, so combined, he was better off than the other guy. And you look at the guy that had more strikes, he had more opens, so his BER would not have got him into the state. And I told him, I said, your son qualified for the state under BER. He would have qualified. So he put the BER, and I think it's more, people are saying, well, you're giving more value to a strike. Yeah. Isn't that what the game is?
Yeah.
I said, baseball has changed their entire metric system for how you rate it. And the way I sold it to the high school committee is I had a thing up there, and I said, here, you're the general manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. You got 3 free agents. Here's their batting average. I said, which one do you want? And they picked, in this case, it was like C. I said, but some of those guys walk a lot more than that. So I said, here's the batting average, but here's the walks.
Mm-hmm.
And the walk. Well, the on base percentage now for this guy is higher than this. I'd take this guy. I said, now let's take the last one off. Here's slugging percentage. And this guy up here with the lowest batting average had a huge slugging percentage. So we do the on base plus slugging. It was him. Mm-hmm. I said, well, we take him. I said, the 3 people up there are 3 guys directly in the same lineup for the Los Angeles Dodgers: Mookie Betts, Freeman, and Ohtani. And the first take was Freeman. Second take was Mookie Betts. And you finally decided you like Ohtani. And you didn't know who they were. But why did you pick it? Because that guy's on base and slugging percentage is the highest, even though his batting average is a little lower. I said, that's what BER is compared to fill ratio. Fill ratio is the batting average. On base and slugging is the BER. And I'm not going to convince everybody, but in my heart, and as I've told many of my employees, I said, when you make a decision at ABC or equipment spec or whatever, I said, if you can defend it in front of 1,500 delegates and they may not agree with you, but they'll accept it because you can defend it. Will you get up and defend it, and you do it because it's right? And I told Neil Stremel and Danny Speranza and a lot of the people who used to work on the technical side, I said, when you put your head down on the pillow at night, you have to feel you did the right thing for the game. In my opinion, BER is the right thing for the high school. Middle school, we still have fill ratio because it's more of a fun thing. The high school one, we're just trying to find the best bowlers. And I said, we can eliminate the singles event. We don't have to worry about that. We'll just team. Well, singles are important. Then let's get the best bowlers there. And that's all BER is. BER is the on-base slugging percentage of baseball. Batting average is the fill ratio of baseball.
You moneyballed it.
Yeah. and I will tell you, people on the high school committee and people at the headquarters of BCA, I said, remember, if you watch the movie, the first person through the brick wall gets bloodied, then everybody follows. We're getting bloodied. Just hold on with it. Just stay with it.
Yep, for sure.
I mean, we're into it now, and I didn't hear any complaints at the state because maybe nobody wanted to argue with me, but I'll take BER over fill ratio anytime.
There you go. And Jay says, wouldn't it be 3 outcomes? Well, yeah, with fill ratio, it's either fill or not. So it's 2.
It's a 1 or a 0. In essence, you get no credit for getting a 9 count in an open. It's 0.
Yeah, he says
it's
advantage.
Like an out. And you can have a productive out. And at least baseball has come to the point if it's a sacrifice fly, they don't count it as an at bat.
Right. Yeah. What do you think about this comment? Advantage two-handers.
Well, Dick Fosbury figured out how to get a higher jump out of jumping, and everybody thought he's nuts. Two-handers, if they can get more. I mean, in today's environment, the two-handers better. And I mean, a funny story of the two-handers, when I was a junior bowler in Miami, I was at Cloverleaf Lanes, and 2 of us were saying, hey, it would be fun. And we got these 10-pound balls. We were spinning it and hooking across the lane. We thought that was really funny. Who knew? Maybe we set a trend at that point. Two-handers, do they have an advantage? Depends on the condition. Ask Carmen Salvino. I asked Carmen one time, I said, you make bowling balls. Would you rather control the ball or the lane? I said, the lane any day. So I don't care if it's a two-hander. I could take him out of competition. All you do is try and make it fair. Can he get more resins faster? Absolutely.
Yep. But
the more boards you cover, the less margin for error you have, because if you go too slow, it's going to hook. Whereas a direct player, and that's how I made, I don't say my money, made my game is I never miss a pocket, never miss a spare. So if you make a mistake, I was probably going to win. Two-handers event, it's just a different way to play the game. Go back into the early 1900s. There's 2-finger balls, and they went to 3-finger balls, and they went to semi-grip, full grip. The game has evolved. The balls have evolved. And one of the things I used to say to the guys in the equipment spec, I said, our responsibility is allow technology to move forward, but try and keep the important part in the hands of the bowler. And if you look at right now, who's the number 1 bowler? One-handed. Tackett. Belmo, two-hander. I mean, it's still in the hands of the bowler. The better bowlers will come to the top. I don't care what the equipment, and it's so close, it can affect an outcome. But I mean, who would you put your money on winning the next tournament? Tackett 1, Belmo 2. And that's going to be for a while until the next person comes up. It's still the bowler, the best bowler. Earl Anthony was probably the best bowler in his era. And then Mark Roth, ironically, Mark Roth, I mean, he's an outstanding bowler. And a little side story, when I was living in New York, I qualified for the state, which is now the Pepsi. But at that time, it was the All-American Youth Bowl in the different divisions. And I was in the U15. And I'm bowling a Panorama Bowl in Utica, New York. And I was in second place going to the last game, choke shot, 135, dropped to 7th place. Okay, and I broke out. I was nervous as hell, probably the best experience I ever had. Years later, I'm looking through my scrapbook. And I said, wonder if there are any famous people at that tournament. And it was on a Mimeo sheet. Flipping through it. And I looked through the older ones. I figured that's right, fine. So I'm going down. There I am. Below me, one spot below me is Mark Ross, Staten Island. He and I are this. Unfortunately, he passed away. Same age. I go, I bowled him once and I beat him. I bowled Mark Ross once and beat him when we were kids in New York. And he probably has no clue, nor did he care in his life. But I got a mimeograph sheet that says I beat Mark Ross.
There you go.
But, different strokes for different folks. Fosbury Flop, I was reading about him the other day. As far as that, he was ridiculed. They set a new standard for high jumping. Yeah. And And then you take pole vaulting. It still takes the athlete, even though it's a fiberglass pole that can shoot them over the thing. You still better be coordinated as far as that. It's still an athletic competition.
Yeah.
And one of the things I always just say, if you make bowling so consistent, if every lane were the same, every lane condition was with everybody, I said it turns into a video game. Once you master the video game, it's no fun anymore. What's neat about bowling is it's constantly changing. And the thing I like about bowling rather than golf, you can't see the sand traps and you can't see the trees in bowling. It's all, even with the blue on the lanes, you got an idea. Until you throw the ball, you don't know what's going to happen. Where in golf, I know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to slice into the woods, but that's a different issue.
Yeah. Jay says he also sees Mookie bowling tournaments at his local house in Simi Valley. He's friends with their pro shop operator, Marvin Hale. So
it's a neat guy.
Yeah.
Chris Paul is a fun bowler too. He was at our headquarters. Chris Barnes and Chris Paul became very good friends. And Chris Paul was an avid bowler and did the Chris Paul thing, and Mookie Betts, and you got John Burkett, the pitcher. So I mean, to be a good bowler, you have to be an athlete. No way around it. And the bowlers today, they train. They're in good shape. Back in my era, they didn't. I trained for the World Cup because I knew I was bowling 56 games in 4 days on conditions, and I ran a lot just to keep my legs up. But for the most part, there wasn't a lot of things. Same with golf. I mean, smoking, drinking, golf, and now it's gym, and it's a new era, and I love watching it. And I'm glad I'm not in this era because I wouldn't have a chance.
Well, let me throw this up just to see how many participants we've got. What does that say? 2 or 3? 3 entries? 2 entries. Oh my gosh. This is the last call right now. So if people want to get into the salsa thing, and I know Jay's not going to like me saying this, he's probably one of the 2, but now's your chance. Put in #YellowJacket into the live chat if you're watching live, and we will pick a winner pretty soon here after we do this.
Let's go off the sheet. Challenge a bowler to appear on a future episode.
I would like to challenge Will Madison.
I would say Diana Zavulova.
The better Russo, Lauren Russo.
We're looking for anyone who has a passion for the sport and a unique story to tell.
All right, so you've met bowlers far and wide, passionate, non-passionate, all with their own stories. But Roger Dalkin, who would you like to see on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef?
This is going to come out of left field, and you may or may not even heard the name, but I would say Doug Shellum.
Okay.
Doug Shellum is a person out of the Minneapolis area who is an avid collector of bowling memorabilia. He's an avid bowler. And he's actually added on a room to his house for all his bowling collection. He's included in the Minnesota Weird Things as having a huge bowling collection. And while it's not memory lane out in Utah, which I got to get out to see sometime, it would be an interesting discussion to talk to him about how he's found some of the stuff. He reached out to me, and I had a very huge bowling collection, a lot of one-offs because of simply the position I held as far as that. And I met him at Toma at the McDonald's in Toma, Wisconsin. And he bought a lot of my collection, personal stuff. He bought a collection of ABC medals from the first tournament to, I think it was 1955, and is only missing like 2 or 3 things. He's an avid bowler and be a lot of fun because he's run bowling leagues. He's bowled, but just the stories he would tell about getting bowling collectible stuff. It's almost like keeping the history of the game alive. And if you're ever in my offices in Greendale, Wisconsin, it was more like a museum than it was a business office. The door was never locked. If there are tours of the building, I always said, tour bowling headquarters, you've seen one office, you've seen them all. The only fun part was the testing facility out back or my office with all the bowling memorabilia. Everything else with people working on computers. He would be an interesting individual, I think, to come on, just a different perspective. Is he a champion here? I don't think he's a champion anything other than he's a champion in his mind of bowling and loves the game. I can get you the information. I doubt he's listening to this, but he got in touch with me right after I got in the College Hall of Fame, congratulated me and all that stuff. And he said, would you autograph the program and send it to me for my collection? I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
I think he would be an interesting, novel guest that you've probably not had somebody like that. You may have had J.C. Kramer on or somebody of those that talk about memorabilia stuff.
Nope.
But it'd be fun. Curator of the memory lane. The International Bowling Museum and Hall of Fame has a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of collectors out there that have a lot of stuff too.
Yeah. Tell me, where in Minnesota is Doug? Because I lived in the Twin Cities.
I want to say Eden. One of the suburbs are there. Patrick Redigan, who works at BCAW, is good friends with him also. But I've got a book up here that Doug sent me. It's called Weird Minnesota, and he's in it because it talks about all the weird people in Minnesota do things, and they consider collecting bowling stuff as weird.
Yeah.
And he's a good friend, and I've been enjoyed letting him have part of my collection. Anytime I've done anything with my collection, I've sold it to people. I've not made money on it, but why'd I sell it? Because it has to have a value. If you get it free, it doesn't mean anything to you. And you may have heard about or may not have heard about it. When I decided to start selling my collection, there was like 20 boxes I had of stuff. I did it in Facebook. And the way I did it is I put up 10 things, described what they were, had pictures of it, and said, you get one bid. And I'm not going to tell you who wins it, because if you think it's worth $25 and he thinks it's worth 50, he's going to get it.
Yeah.
If you think it's worth 20 and you say, well, I would have bid 51. No, you should have just tell me what you'd pay for it.
Yeah.
John Laspina, who bought a lot of stuff from me, also said, you're pricing it way too low. I said, I'm not pricing it. I want you to tell me what it's worth to you. And then you can have it if you're the highest price.
Yeah.
And I got rid of I went on for about a year and a half. I had about 130 people that each week would get the thing. And at the end of the year, anything that didn't sell, we had like a fire sale as far as that. And people say, do you have any more? And I was down in the basement. I came across 2 more bins. So I got to let Doug know about the bins before he starts selling them again.
Okay.
And it's more, there's a value to it if you pay $1 for it.
Well,
if I give it to you, it's no big deal.
If you're going to meet him in Toma to make the exchange, you got to let me know. That's only a little more than an hour for me. So
but the first time is I had a car with all my stuff in because I wanted to show him a lot of the stuff.
Yeah. And
he walks out and I'm showing a couple of things, and a friend's there. He said, how much for everything in the car? I said, Doug, I don't even know what's in the car. How much you want for? I said, who knows? So we agreed on a price, and I said, only one thing. When you get back home and you unpack it, if there's anything in there that's a recognition or award that I got, and one of them was the Friendship Award from WIBC, I said, I want it back because I don't know what's in the. And he said, I got the Friendship Award, the Helen Baker, Gladys Banker Friendship Award. I said, yes, I want that. So it's sitting up on the shelf now. But he spent a whole year unpacking the boxes, and his wife was driving his wife. But I called my wife and said, he wants to buy everything that should sell it to him.
Yeah, get it out of the house.
Basement? You can put it in the basement. so he said he's got a whole wing of his museum of my stuff.
Yeah. Jay says he sounds like he'd be a great guest. I agree. So yeah, we'll have to
I'll get you the information on Doug.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So let's give away some salsa, right? We've got I think we had another late entry here.
It's nice to know 3 people are listening to us
for the giveaway. Yeah, let's see if I can pull this back up here. Why is this not? Oh gosh, what is this thing doing? It's supposed to come back up. There we go. So we got three. All right, you ready? Here we go. You got a 33% chance of winning this thing, and here we go. Ooh, Steve Klemkin's in there. He must have been the third. Oh, and he was the winner. Oh man, it was like it's kind of like in the Wheel of Fortune, right? Where it's sitting on the $10,000 space, and then it goes into bankrupt. Oh, I'm sorry, Jay. You were very
Steve's
close.
wife's a pretty good bowler too. If you
yeah. Well, congratulations, Steve. You know how to get a hold of me, so we'll get your address and all that, and get you a 6-pack of the finest salsa in the world. And thanks everyone for participating in that. I do want to mention that our next show is coming up a week from today. If you don't recognize the name Joey Dayer, he was also one of the ones that Yvonne challenged in her episode. And she mentioned a great story about how he helped to revive a vintage center out east. So this is him holding up a piece of machinery. I'm guessing AMF in in branding. But yeah, he'll be on Tuesday, May 6th, 7 p.m. Central. Hope you'll be around to join us for that. Yeah, I know, Jay. You were close. I wish I had control over it. I'd give you the salsa, but unfortunately, it's kind of a random thing. It's done by StreamYard, but thank you for participating. And Roger, thank you so much for being our guest on the 200th episode.
It's an honor to be on the 200th episode. If I can get on the 300th, that would make my day.
Yeah, I hope so. Let's
one of the interesting things, do you know your ABC or USBC number?
Oh boy, do I know my number? No, I'd have to.
I know mine. 1-300.
Really?
Somebody said, "How'd you get that?" I said, "I had connections." 1 indicates it's a lifetime, and 300 was the 300th lifetime. But I was able to get that, so I'd like to be on the 300th show with you.
Okay,
God willing.
Yeah. No, we will do that. I'll plan on that. Mine is 252321436. I mean, there's no significance there.
Well, it's always funny when somebody says, "What's your?" I write 1-300. What the hell is that? And I said, "Well, 1 means it's a lifetime, and 300 is the number."
Yeah.
So now everybody can go into Bowl.com and type in the number and get into my account.
See, look at this celebration. There it is. Yes. But and sorry, Jay. Yeah, Jay said next time, Pep, thanks for a great interview, guys. Yeah, thank you, Roger.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's always fun to tell bowling stories.
For sure. Yeah, and we're glad you were here for this one. Everyone, thanks so much for tuning in, whether on live or replay. Really appreciate it. We will see you next.
Thank you for watching Bowling with the Fef. Pound the like button and subscribe button. It's the easiest way to support the channel, and it's free. Bowling with the Fef is brought to you by Chip Magnet. Raise your snack standards.
Jerry's Score More Bowling Supply inside Wagner's Lane. So Eau Claire, Wisconsin area's leader in bowling products and services since 1988. And Visionary Video Hub. Video with impact.
Email bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com with questions or to appear on the show. You can also reach out on your favorite social media platform.